Winner of 19 national championships, 10 world and an Olympic gold medal. She's also captured the prestigious Flo Hyman Award along with other winners including Martina Navratilova and Chris Evert. She's been named the U.S. Ski Writers' Outstanding Competitor. This enchanted young woman has made and kept promises that will leave you breathless. She is indomitable, but I'll let her tell you about that herself. Please welcome Diana Golden.
Thank you. Thank you. I always get emotional every time I watch that. You see, at the closing moment of that video, I'm ecstatic and am blowing that kiss to my father, who's standing out in the crowd bawling his head off because his baby, me, just won an Olympic gold for the United States. And this is the thing that I've watched for years on television and dreamed of being there, and this time it's really me listening to the Star-Spangled Banner and watching the raising of the flag of the United States of America. I did it. I made it to the center podium. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you here today have made it to your own center podium. That's what the $1 Million Round Table is. And, you know, how do we get to these high points in our lives, these super poles, main platforms, these center podiums? Well, there's a very funny comment that people often make to me, especially after I've had a really hot run down a mogul slope. Someone will inevitably ski up to me and they'll say, "Diana, you ski so well. Man, I wish I had your natural ability." I mean, natural ability? What the heck is that? This mystical, magical quality that gives you and you alone the power to excel? Could you imagine if I came up to you and said, "Congratulations for making it to the $1 Million Round Table. To get here, you have demonstrated extraordinary natural ability." No, you know, that isn't why any of us are here today. If you're like me, at one time you had a vision of where you wanted to go, and then you promised yourself you'd pursue that vision, and you kept that promise. You stepped out, made tracks in this direction, and today, here you are. But if you're like me, the $1 Million Round Table, I mean, even though it's the center podium, it isn't your final goal, just like the Olympics wasn't my final goal. And after several years of being at the top in disabled skiing, I decided I wanted some new challenges. So I began competing in non-disabled races against women on two legs. Excuse me. And I started in these open entry races, and in those races I'd finish, you know, not at the very top like I was used to, but not at the very bottom either. And after a couple of years, I was invited to race on this championship series for the top non-disabled women in the East. And I was so excited because I had watched the women racing on this circuit for years, and I'd always hoped that one day I'd be included and I'd be able to participate in that caliber of competition. I wanted to make my mark and beat some of those women. And the day of the first race, I had the normal pre-race jitters. The butterflies flitted and fluttered in my stomach, and I loved that feeling. And that was the feeling that told me I was getting ready to go out and lay myself on the line. And at the start, I said my favorite race expression to myself, which was, Diana, ski like a woman, tough, strong, indomitable. And that's how I attacked that course, and I whipped down this hill, skiing so hot, carving a clean line. I came through the finish line, knew I just had one of the greatest runs of my life. And I looked up at the timing sheet to find my name, and there it was, dead last. And I was furious, but I knew it was a fluke, and the next race I'd do better. So I went to race number 2 in that series, and I finished dead last. And race number 3, and I finished dead last. And I kept thinking, come on, Diana, you can do better. I know you can. But 6 races in a row, I was dead last, and I began to wonder, what was I doing on that circuit? And then after the 7th race, when I was sure that I was dead last one more time, I overheard this conversation between 2 of the other women who had just raced against me. And one of them, Sally, she said to her friend, she said, oh, I'm so bummed. I finished dead last today. Yeah, and when she said that, I was psyched because I thought I had been dead last, but if she was dead last, that had to mean that I was second to last, and after 6 dead last finishes, that was a great improvement. And so the beginning of their conversation was so good, I couldn't help listening in on the rest, and Sally's friend, she said to her, Sally, I'm confused. I thought there was somebody else behind you. And Sally said, oh yeah, there was, but that's just Diana. She's only got 1 leg. She doesn't count. I didn't count. Everyone knows what that feels like when you're told you don't count. You're not important, when nobody believes in what you're doing. And the question is, what do you do when you feel that way? Do you buy into it? Well, after Sally's comment, it was the only time in my skiing career when I just wanted to quit. And this voice in my head kept saying over and over again, Diana, Sally was right. You don't count. You're not fooling anyone. Why don't you just give it up? And I almost did. But that night I had a dream, and in this dream I was fighting with my father, as I occasionally did, and I said to him, that's it, Dad. I'm not racing on that stupid circuit anymore. And he said, that's okay, honey. You do what you think is best. And I said, no, you don't get it. I hate that stupid circuit. I'm never doing it again. And he said, that's all right, honey. You don't have to if you don't want to. And I said, all right, Dad, I'll do it. During that dream, I realized that whatever direction we choose, we should never count ourselves out or give anybody else that power over us to count us out. We all have a little voice like mine somewhere in the back of our heads telling us that we're not important, that we ought to quit. And that voice is like a little assassin just waiting for a chance to murder your spirit. And the trick is not to listen to it. To reach the center podium, it takes resilience. When you get knocked down, no matter what, you keep coming back. And when you do keep coming back, that's when you make the breakthroughs. For me, it was actually kind of ironic, but it was because of my racing on the non-disabled circuit that I had one of the greatest moments of my skiing career. I was invited to forerun the Aspen World Cup downhill. And a forerunner isn't a racer. Instead, a forerunner skis the course right before the race begins to set the very first tracks in the snow. And the Aspen World Cup downhill was for the best women in the world on two legs. It was known to be one of the steepest, most dangerous, vicious downhills in the world. And it was something that was far tougher than anything I'd ever skied before. And that day, I didn't have pre-race jitters, no butterflies. This was something entirely different. I had these snakes, and they were writhing and twisting in my stomach, and I thought I was going to throw up. And there was this battle going on inside of me. Most of my body was saying, "Yo, Diana, what are you, stupid? What do you think you're doing here? This is really dumb." Which was really strange because I'm from Boston, not Brooklyn. But a persistent little voice kept saying, "Maybe you can do it. Give it a shot, Diana. How are you going to know unless you try?" If you're like me, that's the voice you have a love-hate relationship with. Because it challenges you, often more than you want to be. But it's also the voice that helps you to succeed because it gets you through the starting gate. The starting gate is the fear zone. And it's that place right before you launch out into the unknown, whether it's starting a new business, buying a home, getting married. It doesn't matter what it is. When you're in the starting gate, you'll always face the same choice. To let your fears control you, paralyze you, keep you from stepping out, or to meet your fears head on and move through them onto your course. It was that second voice, quiet and tense, that got me through the starting gate of the Aspen downhill. And now for just a few moments, what I'd like to do is to take you with me to the slopes. So what I'd like to have you do is to imagine that instead of being here at this 1992 $1 million roundtable meeting in Chicago, that you're standing at the top of the Aspen race. And you're getting ready to ski this wild downhill at speeds of more than 60 miles an hour. And you've got your helmet on and your goggles on and your thin one-piece speed suit, and the wind whips right through it and it sends this chill down your spine. And the closer it gets to start time, the more intense your fear grows. Until finally the starter calls out your name and he says, "Forerunner, 1 minute to start." And that's you, and you slide into the starting gate and you breathe in and you breathe out, trying to control the fear, but it's not working. And then he says, "Forerunner, 10 seconds. And you put your poles over the start one, and the snakes inside your gut start lashing out at you harder than before until you're quivering. And then he says, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And on one, that tension inside of your head is so big that you think you're going to crack up, go crazy, lose your mind. And then he says, "Go!" And on go, the tension breaks and your body takes over and does what it's been trained to do, to lay it on the line, and you get down into a tuck and you start bouncing along this top flat section and you see the incredibly steep part out in front of you, and when you hit the steep part, you fly over the edge, and as you're up in the air, your heart goes into free fall. And as you land coming back down, it lands clunk into the pit of your stomach. And then you're on this